What is going on, Ive Warriors? So today we have when does fat burning start? When intermittent fasting, the 2023 version, and Happy New Year to everybody out there. I hope your New Year's Eve was very eventful and exciting. Mine's was, so I hope that was the same for you guys. But moving into this video, which I like to do this almost every year, kind of a reminder thing, but every time I do this, I add a new element to it so you guys can further understand what will work for you, or what you need to understand for when the fat burning starts for your specific biology. All right. So this study, which was highly publicized, got a lot of traction in the intermittent fasting community in everywhere. Dropped around October of 2017, and a lot of people were talking about this study. This was done by Dr. Stephen Anton, he was the head of this study, Flipping the Metabolic Switch, Understanding and Applying Health Benefits of Fasting. I actually, because of this study, communicated with Dr. Stephen Anton, and we've communicated many times. I consider him a good friend. Whenever I have any questions regarding certain things, because he's put out over 100 different studies looking at, aging and fasting and stuff like that. So this is right in his wheelhouse of understanding. So every once in a while, I still hit up Dr. Stephen Anton. If you want to see a interview that I did with him, I think I did an interview with him on this channel back in 2018. You can take a look at that. It was a cool interview. The first and only interview I've ever done. It's a really cool look, asking him the common intermittent fasting questions and having him answer those. All right, now, what we want to pay attention here. People want to know, when does the fat burning actually start when they do intermittent fasting? What we get here is typically beyond 12 hours of cessation of food intake, right? Now, it all depends. Typically beyond 12 hours, but depending on how fat adapted you are, it could be anywhere from 8 to 12 hours, or it could be beyond 12 hours, right? It could actually take longer than 12 hours to get into that point. Now, there's a lot of benefits here because he's also looking at stuff like aging and things like that. He sees things like this in the study, because this study is looking at people who were doing alternate day fasting and time restricted feeding, which is 16 hours of eating. 16 hours of fasting, 8 hours of eating. IF regiment also induce the coordinating activation of signaling pathways that optimize physiological function, enhance performance, and slow aging and disease process. So enhanced performance, the norepinephrine, epinephrine goes up, and that increases focus. It's the fight or flight kind of thing that we've evolved, that's still attached to us, is an artifact of our ancient history, where if we don't have food, our bodies get more focused, there's actually an energy increase simply because of the fact that your body is trying to help you get food. And back then, what you needed to do was hunt and kill animals to get food. So these things work in your favor. They trigger in your favor when you are fasting. So if you're thinking about it in terms of a study that was done, 8 to 12 hours, but to be the safest possible, look at it as a 12-hour period, and then you can't go wrong. So, which means don't fast for 12 hours, because you're not going to get anything out of fasting for 12 hours. A lot of people say, oh, I fast for 12 hours. That's how I do my fast. And it's like, don't do that. If you want to get the fasting benefits, don't do that. If all you care about is the time frame, then go ahead, fine. Just, fast for 12 hours. That's it. It's just basically another way of doing caloric restriction, which intermittent fasting is another way of doing caloric restriction. But there are other benefits to it, like going into that post-absorptive range, going in, flipping that metabolic switch, right? And we see all this stuff. This shows how it happens with the blood and the free fatty acids, the adipocytes, which is the fat cells, and how they pull into the blood, the beta hydroxybutyrate that happens with the liver, and how it turns everything into ketones, right? So if we look at this chart down here, let's see if we get all the way down to the chart that kind of shows everything. This is where you'll see the activation happen, right? So this is 12 a.m., 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. So basically the start of the day, midday, and then the end of the day. And then you'll see that at this point right here is where it triggered the metabolic switch, where ketones goes up. You'll see glucose is low. As soon as you start eating, these arrows indicate eating, you'll see that the glucose shoots up, the ketones drop, and then of course when you stop eating again, you'll just fast after after eating here, you fast, you'll see that it goes back up, you'll see that glucose goes down, and then this goes down as soon as you start eating again. This is never switching, which is typically the American eating pattern, where you eat breakfast, lunch, snack, dinner, breakfast, lunch, snack, dinner. You'll notice that the ketones never activate because you're never in a fasted state. Now, what happens when ketones activate is it's basically replacing glucose. Glucose is depleted from the body. This activates that metabolic switch. Ketones is needed, and it takes it from where? Your fatty acids. It takes it from your fat your fat cells that are being stored. So they're using your fats to replace glucose, and you're also in a caloric deficit. So you're partitioning more of the energy from your body fat specifically. Now, the final thing that I will say is that if you want to know what your specific time frame is, because you could be above 12 hours and you could be below 12 hours. This is a study looking at a bunch of people, so this is a good indicator, but it isn't your indicator. You could use this as a guide, but you don't really know unless you use a respiratory exchange ratio device, and that is why I am sponsored by Lumen. Lumen helps you actually understand if you're in a fasted state or if you are burning glucose. But here's another interesting element. Muscle tissue is used to replace glucose after a certain period. So you could actually overfast for your biology. So you want to make sure that you aren't underdoing it, and you want to make sure that you aren't overdoing it. Now, underdoing it and overdoing it is different for everybody, but the Lumen will let you know if you're overdoing it or if you're underdoing it. Now, what does that mean? If you wake up in the morning and you check to see if you're in a fasted state and the indicator comes up that you're burning fat as opposed to burning carbohydrates, that means that you're in a fasted state. Now, if you keep on fasting and now you've hit 30 hours, if you hit 24 hours or you hit 22 hours and you check and you're like, whoa, why did this switch to carbohydrates? Because the process of glucose neogenesis took place, and now your body said, we're not just doing ketones. The brain can only take about 72% ketones. The rest of it has to come from glucose. We have to make glucose happen. So what they do is they go to your muscle tissues, or they go to your proteins, they break them down and they turn them into glucose and then serve that up to your body for energy. So it replaced the ketone bodies, and now you're breaking down muscle tissue. So to be as effective as possible, you want to be in that perfect middle where you are in a fasted state. You get some hours into that fasted state. So 16 hours of fasting is good too, because you'll hit that 12-hour mark, and then you still have 4 more hours. So you're fasting for 4 hours, and you're getting that benefit for 4 hours before you start eating again. And for you, it might be right in that sweet spot where you're not, overdoing it, and now you're burning muscle, which muscle is very metabolically active, and it's going to help you with energy expenditure. So you want to keep as much muscles as possible. Even if you're not this big brolic person or whatever, or you don't have muscles that are showing, you have muscles in your body. You don't want to break down muscle tissue. So you want to make sure that you hold on to as much muscle as possible. And studies have shown with intermittent fasting, even when they put it in a control study with others, like just caloric restriction, muscle loss for a lot of those participants is very high, and it's because they get past their own biology. They get past where their sweet middle is, and they start to do that glucose neogenesis process, and it starts to break down muscle, unfortunately. So you want to be as effective as possible. I highly recommend Lumen. You guys know that I barely ever do sponsorships, unless, to me, the product is very important for my audience, and Lumen to me is one of those products that I think is just amazing. It's a portable RER device that tells you if you're burning fat or if you're burning carbohydrates. I 100% recommend it. I always have a link in all of my videos right at the top. It could give you $50 off if you put the promo code Fledge Fitness 50 and get yourself a Lumen. I'm telling you, it's worth it. You'll always be able to tell, hey, am I, what's going on with me now? Like, am I hitting this marker? Am I not? And it tells you more data, and it lets you know where you are, and it actually schedules everything for you and sets everything up for you. It's a very, very, very good device. But the most important thing that the device does is it lets you know exactly what your body needs in terms of fasting and when to stop fasting. All right, so basically that is my video for today. And like I said, they use multiple different types of fasting systems. See here, they use calorie restriction. They looked at calorie restriction, alternate day fasting, alternate day modified fasting, which allows you to eat on the days that you're not fasting, 25% of your baseline energy, periodic fasting. They looked at time restricted feeding and all of that. So, they looked at different types of fasting that is very the popular ones. Periodic fasting is the 5-2 diet, right? Alternate day fasting, you guys know that, and modified with while you're eating, you guys know that as well. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Hit a like on this video. We do this every single January. First video of January is always about this, and making sure that you guys understand this concept and adding another axiom to it, just like we're talking with the Lumen. So hopefully this video is informative for you. I know this is a curious topic for a lot of people, but they just don't understand the science to it, or they haven't seen the science to it. But yes, 8 to 12 hours roughly, typically 12 hours, depending on how fat adapted you are, which means how much your body can easily switch to burning body fat. That's what fat adaptation means. And of course, with the Lumen, you know exactly where you lie, even while you're doing this fat adaptation transition and becoming more fat adapted. You can still trace it and target it as your body evolves, as your body adapts. All right, until the next one, guys. Peace out, and thank you so much.